This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, welcome everyone. Bruchim Habayim. Usually in the weeks before Pesach, we like to speak about the Yom Tov of Pesach and the Haggadah. And one of the things that gets overlooked is Chol Hamoed, because the week or two before, people want to hear about the Yom Tov itself. So now is a good time to speak about this subject. It's a very interesting topic, somewhat of a lamdasha topic, and that is it permitted to shave on Chol Hamoed or take a haircut? Well, taking a haircut is not really a big deal. You take a haircut before, and usually you're good to go for a couple of weeks. However, especially in our day and age, where many people shave every single day, that's part of their work routine. They have to present themselves in a certain way. So the question is, what do they do on Chol Hamoed? Now, Sfiras HaOmer, in a way, is much more lenient than Chol Hamoed. Sfiras HaOmer, it's not mentioned in the Gemara that not to shave. It's only a minhag. When I say only, a minhag is not only. A minhag is a very serious thing, but still, it's not an absolute halacha, as we're going to see shaving on Chol Hamoed. Shaving on Chol Hamoed is called Dina the Gemara. So let's begin. The Mishnah says in Masechta Hamoed Katan on Daf Yud Gimel on base. The Mishnah says like this: Ve'ilu megalchin b'moed. The following people are allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed. Haba Medinas Hayam, somebody who comes from overseas. In other words, someone who is out of town and did not have an opportunity to shave before Yom Tif. So if he comes back on Yom Tif, is allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed. Umibeis Hashivya, if somebody was released from captivity. So someone's taken hostage by ISIS. If they were so kind as to let you out on Chol Hamoed, which is doubtful, but if they would let you out, you'd be allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed. V'hayotzim beis asurin, or someone who comes out of prison on Yom Tif would be allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed. V'hamenuda shehitiru lai chachamim, or somebody who's been excommunicated. So let's say somebody who was put in cherem. Someone who's in cherem is not allowed to shave. If the chachamim mattered his excommunication on Chol Hamoed, he would be allowed to shave. Let's say someone take a neder. I'm not going to shave. So if the neder was permitted on Yom Tif, so then he could shave on Chol Hamoed. So these are the exceptions to the rule. These people are allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed. So the question is, what about everybody else? So the Gemara asks, Ushar kol adam ma'itaima asurin. Why everybody else are not allowed to shave? What's the reason? Why can't anybody else shave? Right? So I would ask you that question. What would you say? Why can't anyone else shave? I would have thought the reason he can't shave is because he can't do malacha on Chol Hamoed. Chol Hamoed is the most abused days on the Jewish calendar. Everybody should know at least that it's not permitted to do malacha on Chol Hamoed. Some Rishonim say it's d'oraisa, and some say it's d'Rabbanan. There are exceptions to the rule. So, for example, davar ha'avid, if someone's going to lose money, not if somebody. In other words, most people, if they don't go to work, they won't be making money. Let's say every day you make $1,000. So if I don't go to work, I'll lose $1,000 a day. That's not called losing money. That's called not making money. That would not allow a person to go to work. It would be money that you have in your pocket, you would lose. So obviously part of that is if you're jeopardizing your career or your job. But other than that, you're not allowed to work on Chol Hamoed. Other exceptions are what? Rabbis don't work, right? The other exceptions are, let's say a Maisa Hedya, something which is not considered a skilled craft, a skilled laborer, that would be permitted on Chol Hamoed. Now, hopefully people don't get too upset at me. Many Chol Hamoed trips that are very common do involve prohibitions that are very serious, and these are things that are commonly done, and so I'm not going to tell you not to do it, I'll just tell you ask a shaila. Apple picking, you know how to pick apples off a tree on Chol Hamoed? It's straight Mishnayos. Pottery, painting pottery. You can't. Well, you need that mug. You don't have mugs at home. Why do you need to paint that mug? So these are things that you should definitely ask a shaila before you do them. But the bottom line is that you're not allowed to do malacha on Chol Hamoed, and one would think that shaving is a malacha. So why are you allowed to do it? So the Gemara says a completely different reason why one would not be allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed. Says the Gemara, "My time asurin kedetanan." We learned in a Mishnah. Anshe mishmar, V'anshe Maimed asurin l'saper u'lechabes. The men of the Mishmar and the men of the Maimed are not allowed to take a haircut and to do laundry. So what's this talking about? What's the Anshe Maimed and the Anshe Mishmar? So it used to be they broke up the groups of Kohanim into groups of 24, and they were broken up into various weeks. So the Kohanim would serve usually 2 weeks a year. On the week of your Mishmar, a Kohen was not allowed to shave. Also, you had Ma'amados. The same way the Kohanim would have to come and do time in the Beis HaMikdash twice a year. The Yisraelim were also broken up into 24 groups, and the Yisraelim would stand by as representative of the rest of Klal Yisrael while the Kohanim did the Avodah. The Yisraelim, whose turn it was that week to do the Avodah, to watch the Avodah, was not allowed to do laundry or shave during that week. Why? V'amar Rabba Baruchana, Amar Rav Elazar, my taima, kedei shelo yikansu l'mishmarasan k'shehein minuvalin, so that they do not enter their mishmar looking disgusting. Because if we're going to allow a kohen or a Yisrael to shave during the week that they do the Avodah, they're going to say to themselves, I'm so busy packing and getting ready to go up to Shalayim, I'll shave when I get there. And they're going to enter the Beis HaMikdash unkempt, and they're going to look they're not going to look presentable. So in order to ensure and encourage people to take haircuts and to shave and to do laundry before their week in the Beis HaMikdash, we say, you have no alternative. If you don't shave now, you're going to look like an even bigger shlamazel during the week of your avodah. So in order to encourage people not to enter the Beis HaMikdash unkempt, we say, you should know, if you don't do it now, this is your last chance, you're not going to be able to do it when you go to the Beis HaMikdash. So says the Gemara, Hachanami, here also, when it comes to Chol Hamoed, why is one not allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed? Kedei shaloi yichnesu l'regel k'shehein minuvalan. Because if you would be allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed, then with all the things that you need to get ready before Yom Tif, you got your suit and you got your clothing, you took your shower. I didn't shave. Don't worry, it's only 1 or 2 days. I'll shave after. People are going to come to shul looking like a mess, and therefore, in order to make sure people come into the Yom Tov looking nice and presentable, we say, Rabbi Yid, if you don't shave now, shave al tasa, right? You're not going to be able to shave later. Okay, so then you can't shave on the second day of Yom Tov. The first days are more important. So Einachanami, you're not going to look that great the second days. And anyway, what are we talking about here? We're talking about, we don't want you to look disgusting. You could have a guy who went a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So if he doesn't shave, he's going to look terrible for the beginning of Yom Tov. But if he shaves before the first days, so by the time the second days comes, he only has a couple days of stubble. Anyway, the look is in right now, so it's not a big deal. Okay.
How about for Shabbos?
You can't shave for Shabbos on Chol Hamoed. Okay, so that's the Gemara. The Gemara says, except for these exceptions, nobody's allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed. Why? Kedei shaloi yichnesu l'regel k'shehein minuvalim. So you don't enter Yom Tif looking disgusting.
Even if
so,
be upset?
Yeah, they'll be upset anyway. No, okay, yeah. You have to do everything you can to make sure not to upset them. If you do that, they won't care about your beard. Okay. So the Shulchan Aruch says like this. So it would seem like an open and closed case. Why? Because if you look in Shulchan Aruch, in Aruch Chaim, Siman Tov Kuf Lamed Aleph, Shulchan Aruch paskins, mitzvah legaleach ve'erev Yom Tif. It's a mitzvah to shave erev Yom Tif. Could you shave on Chol Hamoed? Says the Shulchan Aruch, ein megalchem hamoed. You can't shave on Chol Hamoed. So it's black and white. So it would seem like there's nothing to talk about. You have a Gemara, you have a Shulchan Aruch, and it's open and closed. Once the Shulchan Aruch paskins, there's nothing to talk about. So why do we have a shiur tonight? Because there is a Rabbeinu Tam. There's a Shita Rabbeinu Tam, and this Rabbeinu Tam is quoted by the Torah. And the Torah in Aruch Chaim, in Siman Tov Kuf Lamed Aleph, basically says the same thing as the Shulchan Aruch, that you can't shave on Chol Hamoed. And the reason is so that you don't enter Yom Tif looking unkempt. Because if you would be allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed, people would just go into the Yom Tif looking like a mess, and they'll rely on the fact that they could shave on Chol Hamoed. Says the Torah on the 5th line, Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbeinu Tam is, we cannot emphasize enough that for those of us who are Ashkenazim, as much as we grow up thinking The Rambam, the Rif, the Mesorah of Ashkenazim is Rabbeinu Tam was Gadol b'chachmo v'minyan mikol harishonim. They don't teach this. I don't know why people don't know. The greatest Rishon was Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbeinu Tam says, by the way, Rabbeinu Tam was fantastically wealthy. Rabbeinu Tam had hundreds of avodim. Rabbeinu Tam was wealthier than any nobleman of his time, and he also had hundreds of talmidim. He was gadol b'chachmo v'minyan from all the Rishonim. Says Rabbeinu Tam, Kivan shezehu hatam. Says Rabbeinu Tam, an amazing chiddush. If the reason why you're not allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed is so that you don't enter Yom Tif a mess, what if you shaved Erev Yom Tif and you didn't enter Yom Tif a mess? So then it should come out, you should be allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed. The only reason you're not allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed is because we want to make sure you come into Yom Tif looking good. But if you shaved Erev Yom Tif and you came to Yom Tif looking good, why in the world would you not be allowed to shave on Yom Tif, on Chol Hamoed? Says Rabbeinu Tam, in Kvar Gileach Koydem HaMoed, Mutter Legaleach B'Moed. Says Rabbeinu Tam, if you shave Erev Yom Tif, shave Chol Hamoed, shave every day, shave every 3 hours. Some people need it. Says Rabbeinu Tam, if you shave Erev Yom Tif, Mutter Legaleach B'Chol Hamoed. Says the Torah, it's very hard to matter based on Rabbeinu Tam. It would be very difficult to be samech on the skula. Why? Number one, it's just very hard to be samech on it. Number two, says the Torah, the Gemara is not mashma that way. Because the Gemara asks, Gemara says, what about everybody else? Oh, everybody else is not allowed to, except for the Mishnah that says the exceptions. So, somebody who got out of jail, somebody who got out of captivity, somebody whose nidoi was over, somebody whose neder was hutar. Why didn't the Mishnah say, and someone who shaved Erev Yom Tif? The fact that the Mishnah omits the most obvious exclusion means, because it's not an exclusion, then even if somebody shaves on Erev Yom Tif, you're not allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed. Otherwise, if you'd be allowed to, why didn't the Mishnah list the obvious exclusion? If the Mishnah listed the guy who got out of jail, the guy who got out of prison, the guy who came from Medina Sayyam, the guy who matered his neder, what about the guy who shaved on Erev Yom Tif like a normal human being? So the fact that the Mishnah did not list that exclusion means it's not an exclusion. That taka, even if you shaved Erev Yom Tif, you may not shave on Chol Hamoed. And number two, says the Torah, another reason why you can't rely on Rabbeinu Tam. Imagine if a guy came in on Chol Hamoed, perfectly shaved. What are people going to say? People are going to say, the guy shaved on Chol Hamoed. I know Vas Titzach and the guy's in his powder room that he shaved Erev Yom Tif. I don't know why he shaved Erev Yom Tif. It's Maras Ha'ayin. So if somebody walks in on Chol Hamoed, shaved, it's Maras Ha'ayin to walk in and shave on Chol Hamoed. We don't know that he shaved on Erev Yom Tif. For example, what's the halacha? Did you ever lose your car keys? I did. And until you find them, you can't do anything else, especially if you need the car. If you don't need your car. But if you're missing something, better enough, you lost your phone, right? Imagine if you lost your phone Erev Yom Tif. Would you be able to do anything until you found your phone? No. The answer is no. Don't kid yourself. So imagine a guy lost his phone Erev Yom Tif, and he couldn't shave. He's an oinus. Is he allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed? So the Gemara discusses that. Not the phone, but, someone lost something. And the Gemara says, no, he cannot shave on Chol Hamoed. But he was an oinus that he couldn't shave Erev Yom Tif. The answer is nobody knows that he lost his phone. He didn't have his phone to tell anybody that he lost the phone, so nobody knows that he lost his phone. But the Gemara says, nobody knows that, so it's Maris Ha'ayin for him to shave on Chol Hamoed. So by the same token, says the Torah, if somebody shaved Erev Yom Tif, but nobody knows he shaved Erev Yom Tif, so for him to shave on Chol Hamoed is Maris Ha'ayin. And therefore the Torah says, Halach Lamaisa, we cannot rely on Rabbeinu Tam. Even if someone shaved on Erev Yom Tif, they cannot shave on Chol Hamoed. Marav Rabbi say, does anybody hold like Rabbeinu Tam? No. Not the Rambam, not the Rif, not the Rosh, not the Rashba, not the Ritva, not Rashi, nobody. There is not a Rishon in the book that agrees to Rabbeinu Tam. And in fact, look back at number 3, the Shulchan Aruch writes black and white, Ein megalchin b'moyed, you cannot shave on Chol Hamoed, Afilu im gilach koidem moed, even if you shaved on Erev Yom Tov. So it seemed pretty black and white, as you'll ever get, that even if you shaved on Erev Yom Tov, you cannot shave on Chol Hamoed. Comes the Heilige Noda B'Yehuda in Madura Kama Siman Gimel, and the Noda B'Yehuda was posed with this question: can you shave on Chol Hamoed? Now you have to understand, in the olden days, they didn't have shavers. So how would somebody shave? With the cream, right, or the powder? It's like basically taking, acid. You open up a battery and you put it on your face. You take off the hair and sometimes you take off the face also. But that's what they used to do. A very powerful powder or cream. But it's the same shaila. It's not any more or less of an issue. So at first, the Noda was asked, "Can you do this on Chol Hamoed?" And he responded, "Of course not. Only Rabbeinu Tam matters it. Everybody else, including the Shulchan Aruch and all the Rishonim, aser it. It would seem to be open and shut." But then the Noda B'Yehuda said to himself, Rabbeinu Tam was a big gun. We know if a big man says something, you have to try to understand why did he say it. And says Noda B'Yehuda, you know what? Something hit me. Because it seems like everybody missed something in the sugya. The Gemara says, why are you not to shave on Chol Hamoed? Because so you don't enter Yom Tov a mess. Ask the Noda B'Yehuda. The Gemara should have said a much better answer. You can't shave on Chol Hamoed because you're not allowed to do melacha on Chol Hamoed. And according to many Rishonim, melacha is a doiraisa on Chol Hamoed. Why does the Gemara give this like gezerah? We're worried if you shave on Chol Hamoed, you're going to enter Yom Tov. And Omkep said, say it. The guy's a Russia if he shaves on Chol Hamoed because he's over Nisr doiraisa of doing melacha. Says in Noda B'Yehuda, that's right, it is a malacha. But if a guy didn't shave on Erev Yom Tov, so now it comes the Chol Hamoed, the guy looks like he has a beard down to the floor. He looks like a goat already. I mean, he has a nice beard if he didn't shave Erev Yom Tov, and now it's the Chol Hamoed. So for him to shave on Yom Tov, it's a tzarech hamoed. This is a serious tzarech hamoed to shave. We know you're allowed to do malacha on Chol Hamoed if you need to do the malacha for the Yom Tov. For example, you're allowed to cook on Chol Hamoed, anything, because it's a tzarech hamoed. You're allowed to drive your car to the store because it's a tzarech hamoed. You're allowed to do malacha. You're allowed to turn on a light on Chol Hamoed. It's a tzarech hamoed. So if a guy did not shave on Erev Yom Tov, of course he could shave on Chol Hamoed else the malacha, because that malacha would be tzarech hamoed. There's a different reason he's not allowed to shave. He's not allowed to shave because shelo yikanes l'regel k'shehem menuvel. But what if the guy did shave Erev Yom Tov? So if the guy did shave Erev Yom Tov, listen carefully, then you don't have the svara that you can shave on Chol Hamoed, so you don't come into Yom Tov as a mess, because he didn't come into Yom Tov as a mess, he shaved Erev Yom Tov. Then he can't shave on Chol Hamoed because it's a malacha. Why? Because this guy, since he shaved Erev Yom Tov, he's basically shaven. So he has a little stubble. It looks good anyway. It's not a real need to shave that off. So listen carefully. So says the Noda B'Yehuda, Mimon Nafshach. Get this. Okay? You got to think clearly. Mimon Nafshach. Did the guy, either way, you can't shave on Chol Hamoed. If you didn't shave on Erev Yom Tov, so the guy has a big beard by the time Chol Hamoed comes, so there's no malacha to shave it off on Chol Hamoed because it's a real genuine need, then you can't shave because of the Yisur D'Rabbanan, shelo yikanes l'regel k'shehu menuvel, because we didn't want you to go into that state in the first place. But if the guy did shave Erev Yom Tov, so then we can't tell him not to shave on Chol Hamoed, shelo yikanes l'regel k'shehu menuvel, because he did shave Erev Yom Tov, then he can't shave on Chol Hamoed because it's a malacha to shave. And don't say it's a tzarech Yom Tov because to shave off a little stubble is not a tzarech Yom Tov. So whether he shaved or whether he didn't shave, you can't shave on Chol Hamoed. If he shaved Erev Yom Tov, you can't shave because it's a malacha to shave on Chol Hamoed. And if you didn't shave Erev Yom Tov, you can't shave on Chol Hamoed. Kedei shelo yikanes l'regel k'shehu menuvel. So what's Pshat Rabbeinu Tam? Rabbeinu Tam says, if you shaved on Erev Yom Tov, you're allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed. Why? Why are you allowed to shave? But if you shaved on Erev Yom Tif, it's a malacha to shave. So now this is the breakthrough of the Noda B'Yehuda. You ready for this? Says the Noda B'Yehuda, so you got the manavshach. If you shaved, it's a malacha to shave on Chol Hamoed. If you didn't shave Erev Yom Tif, then you can't shave because it's an Issa D'Rabbanan, Kedei Shelo Yikanas L'Regel Shum Neva. Says the Noda B'Yehuda, this is the breakthrough. You know what Rabbeinu Tam means that if you shaved on Erev Yom Tif, you could shave on Chol Hamoed? There is a halacha that even though you're not allowed to do malacha on Chol Hamoed, let's say you have a guy who is poor, and he needs to work to put food on the table. He is allowed to work on Chol Hamoed. You know that? It's another exception. A poyel ani, let's say a shoemaker, a tailor, a barber, who needs the $100 he's going to make that day to be able to pay the bills, to put food on the table, someone like that is allowed to do malacha on Chol Hamoed. So says the Noda B'Yehuda, you know what Rabbeinu Tam means? Rabbeinu Tam means that if a guy shaved on Erev Yom Tif, you know what Rabbeinu Tam means? That he could shave on Chol Hamoed. He could go to a Jewish barber who's not doing well, and that Jewish barber could shave him, because a poyel ani is allowed to do malacha on Chol Hamoed. Rabbeinu Tam didn't mean anyone could shave him or he could shave himself. Rabbeinu Tam meant that a poyel ani could shave the guy. So listen carefully. If the guy did not shave Erev Yom Tif, he has no recourse, because there's an Isser D'Rabbanan to shave, Kedei Shelo Yikanas L'Regel K'Shum Neva. But if the guy did shave, and now the reason why he can't shave is because it's a legitimate malacha, because his beard is not really that long now, it's not really a tzorach. It would only have been a tzorach if he didn't shave and it's really long, but then that guy couldn't shave because Kedei Shelo Yikanas L'Regel K'Shum Neva. But if the guy did shave, and the only problem now is malacha, you could go to a poyel ani, you could go to a non-Jewish worker, and he could shave off your beard. Says the Noda B'Yehuda, that's probably what Rabbeinu Tam means when he said that if you shaved Erev Yom Tif, you could shave on Chol Hamoed. Says the Noda B'Yehuda, it's my opinion that none of the Rishonim understood Rabbeinu Tam correctly. They understood Rabbeinu Tam that you could just shave directly, and therefore they argued on him. But if all the Rishonim would have thought of my pshat Rabbeinu Tam, they would have agreed to my pshat. And therefore says the Noda B'Yehuda, nobody argues on me, not the Shulchan Aruch, not the Torah. It's they thought pshat Rabbeinu Tam is you could shave straight up. If they would have realized what he meant is you could shave through a poyel ani, they would have been maskim, and therefore I feel that the following conclusion says the Noda B'Yehuda. He says, therefore, this individual who, says Rabbeinu Tam, says Noda B'Yehuda, this individual who has to go in front of governors and officials and is a politician, and his job requires him to be presentable on a very high level, he could go to a poor Jewish barber on Chol Hamoed who could shave his face without a problem. Says the Noda B'Yehuda, I'll just read to you the conclusion of his tshuva. U'lechein nireh lefi ani ezdaiti she'al kalpanim im gileach be'erev haregel, if somebody shaved on Erev Yom Tif, so you could rely on the great Amud, the iron foundation of Rabbeinu Tam. And even though all the poskim argue on Rabbeinu Tam, but my position is through a poyel ani, they would all agree, especially, says the Noda B'Yehuda, someone who has to go in front of princes and officers and politicians, so for him it's a great tsar to appear with facial hair, and they're going to mock him. For somebody like this, under the circumstances, they would be allowed to shave al yedei a poyel ani. Now you have to understand, this is not really that great of a heter for us, because, who exactly is this poyel ani that we're going to find? The guy's going to have a sign up. He's, a certified poor barber, certified by the Badatz. He's a certified poyel ani. But it's already a little bit of an opening if you know somebody. What?
Shave ourselves,
No, you can't shave yourself. That's what he's saying. Yeah, some people go bring the shaver to the barber. So the Noda B'Yehuda's heter would not allow somebody to shave themselves. Or the only person who could do the malacha, you can't shave yourself because it's a malacha. If you shaved Erev Yom Tif, you can't shave yourself. No, N-O, big N-O, because it's a malacha. You can only do it through a poyel ani. So can't use a guy. Only the yid.
So how do you find something like that?
It's not really that practical. I mean, there are people, who are barbers who have a hard time making it. If you could find someone, that would be the heter of the Noda. Again, and not for anybody. It has to be somebody who has a high-ranking job in politics.
The whole thing is to use a Payalanis because it's not a malach for him. Why wouldn't you be able to use a guy?
They allowed a payala. Why wouldn't? Okay. So in the times of Noda Yehuda, so it could be you could use a guy. Just the reason why he says payal ani, it happened to be in the times of Noda Yehuda, the goyim did not know how to use the powder because they just used razors. So it wasn't shaykh. We'll see. It's not really shaykh to use a guy. Today, maybe it would be shaykh to use a guy. So that might be another option. The Noda Yehuda gave this fact, and the world was up in arms because for hundreds of years, no yid shaved his beard on Chol Hamoed, and everybody was against the Noda Yehuda to the point where the Chida brings down, and it's quoted in the Shtei Chemed. You have it on your sheet in number 9. The Shtei Chemed brings down from the Chida, who quotes the Ikrei Hadat, that the Ikrei Hadat says there was such a commotion and such a rush, and people were so angry, the Rabbanim were so angry at the Noda Yehuda, that the Noda Yehuda at the end of his life, says Ikrei Hadat, changed his mind. He was chayzer. That is what's reported by the Ikrei Hadat. However, the Shtei Chemed says, Lo haya v'lo nivra. The Noda Yehuda never changed his mind, because everybody knows there are many editions of the Shas Tshuvas Noda Yehuda. The tshuva that we just read is Siman Yud Gimel of Madura Kama. But posthumously, it was published by the sons of the Noda Yehuda, many more tshuvas of Noda Yehuda, and in Siman Sadi Tes and Siman Kuf and Siman Kuf Aleph of Madura Tinyana, the Noda Yehuda wrote another 3 tshuvas endorsing his original psak, and says, the Shtei Chemed, there is no doubt that if the Noda Yehuda was chayzer at the end of his life, there's no way his kids would publish another 3 tshuvas after he died, endorsing his original psak. So I want to share with you these 3 tshuvas in Noda Yehuda, which are some of the 3 most mysterious tshuvas you will ever come across, where the Noda Yehuda endorses this psak, and he says some pretty incredible things. Okay, let us look in number 7. Says the Noda Yehuda in Madura Tinyana, number 6, Siman Tzadites. So he got a letter, and the questioner was really troubled that the Noda Yehuda would endorse the psak of Rabbeinu Tam against all the poskim. How could you do such a thing? All the poskim argue on Rabbeinu Tam. Why would you uphold the psak of Rabbeinu Tam against all the Rishonim? Especially, the questioner asks, in our generation, all people need to do is hear that there's one rabbi who once said you could do this, and they'll be matter everything. So it's not. Is this a good idea to let the cat out of the bag? That you mattered even a governor, even somebody who works in politics, to shave al yedei payalani. I mean, if people get a hold of that, then they're going to take it to the nth degree. And even if you hold that it's true, why would you be mefarsim such a thing? Well, says the Noda Yehuda, let me tell you something. Why should I not endorse the psak of Rabbeinu Tam? I think Rabbeinu Tam is correct, says the Noda Yehuda. There's no favoritism over here. There's no nepotism over here. If I'm a legitimate posek, if I feel Rabbeinu Tam is correct, I will endorse the psak of Rabbeinu Tam. But Rabbeinu Tam is a das yachid, and nobody agrees with him. So here's where the Noda Yehuda's chiddush comes in. No, wrong. The reason why nobody agrees with Rabbeinu Tam is because nobody understood Rabbeinu Tam. Everybody thought Rabbeinu Tam meant that if you shave Chol Hamoed, you could shave straight out without a payalani. And on that, everybody disagrees that if you could shave straight out, listen carefully, if you could shave straight out, then remember what the Torah's question was? What was the Torah's question on Rabbeinu Tam? The Torah's question on Rabbeinu Tam is, if you could shave straight out, why didn't the Mishnah list it as one of the exceptions to the rule? The guy who comes out of jail, the guy who's let out of prison, the guy who comes from Medina Sayyam, says the Noda Yehuda, I'll answer that question, because Rabbeinu Tam didn't mean that if you shave on Erev Yom Tov, you could shave on Chol Hamoed. He meant you could shave al Yedei Payalani. And the Mishnah didn't list that exception, because the Mishnah was only talking about cases that you could shave yourself. But the Mishnah wasn't talking about cases that you could shave al Yedei Payalani. And the other question that they had on Rabbeinu Tam was, it's Maris Ha'ayin to shave on Chol Hamoed. Nobody knows you shaved Erev Yom Tov. Well, now it's not Maris Ha'ayin, because they're going to see you're shaving through a Payalani and you're not shaving yourself. So I answered all the questions on Rabbeinu Tam. The only reason the Rishonim argued on Rabbeinu Tam is they thought Rabbeinu Tam meant that you could shave yourself. If they would have known, Yehuda, if they were as smart as me, then they wouldn't have argued on Rabbeinu Tam. Says the Noda Yehuda, it's an amazing thing how the Noda Yehuda has the courage to basically say that he got a better pshat in Rabbeinu Tam than all the Rishonim in the Torah. But he says,
why did Rabbeinu Tam still say that? When you say
that's what he meant. He obviously meant that. Otherwise, of course, he never would have said that you could shave straight up. Otherwise, the Mishnah would have said it as an exception. Therefore, says the Noda Yehuda like this. He makes this point a number of times. He says, if this is what Rabbeinu Tam means, so then I agree with Rabbeinu Tam, and all the Rishonim missed the boat in what pshat Rabbeinu Tam is. And even if Rabbeinu Tam meant that you yourself could shave, but wouldn't all the other Rishonim agree that al Yedei Payalani, you could do it? So even if that's not what Rabbeinu Tam meant, but it's a heter that everybody should buy into. If I give my heter, then people are going to take it and apply it to other cases? Look, there's only so careful someone who teaches Torah has to be. You can't hide the truth out of fear that someone's going to extrapolate it in a ridiculous way. Well, says the Noda Yehuda something incredible. Okay, get ready for this. Fasten your seatbelts. The truth is, let me tell you a story. About 12 or 15 years ago, says Noda Yehuda, someone came to me. He worked in the government. He dealt with officials, and he needed a heter to shave on Chol Hamoed. I didn't want to tell him it's mutter, now he doesn't say why. So I just told him, this year, in your circumstances, you could shave, but just be aware, you'll never be able to shave any other year, and it doesn't apply to anyone else. Says Rabbi Yehuda, I didn't want to tell him that I felt it was mutter, so I told him it was a hayras, shah, a one-time dispensation. Now, don't make the mistake, says Rabbi Yehuda, that I didn't tell him it was mutter because I didn't want other people to hear about it and matter their cases. I'm not afraid, says Rabbi Yehuda. If a Rav feels something is mutter, he says it's mutter, and what's the expression? Let the chips fall where they may. Okay, you see? I need you guys. Fine. However, says Rabbi Yehuda, I had a secret reason why I didn't want to be mefarsei my heter. Not because I was afraid people would extrapolate to other cases. It's not that I was afraid, well, if people hear that I said you could shave on Chol Hamoed, people are going to shave on Shabbos. No. The reason why, listen to this, the reason why I didn't want people to know you could shave on Chol Hamoed is because many, many Yidden shave every day with a razor. But they're so backward. How are they backward? They shave with a razor, but they wouldn't shave on Chol Hamoed, chas v'shalom. It's like Jews today. They don't get married in the 9 days, but on the 10th day of Av, they'll marry a shiksa. There's nothing wrong with marrying, seriously. There's nothing wrong with marrying a guy, but not during the 9 days. Or not during the beginning of the month, chas v'shalom. Not at the end of the month, not at the end of the month. People want to know, I can't shave in the 9 days. But they could eat chazer treif, that's not a problem. People are backward, right? People won't eat gebraks, but they'll steal from the government. That's okay. It says in the Torah, from a guy. Yeah, but the Halal Shulchan Aruch says you're not allowed to steal from a guy. They have a different Torah. They go by Torah's Lakshan, and their Torah they have other. They have somebody else gave them a Torah. People have a warped sense of halacha. And everything is a matter of, culture and what they did in the Altahaim and Haimish. Sometimes it's not Haim, sometimes it's Behaimish. So people have to know what's halacha and what's Shulchan Aruch. And the Shulchan Aruch says that you're allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed. It says in Noda. But I was afraid that if I would tell people they could shave on Chol Hamoed, so what is this doing? You know what it's doing? They're going to end up shaving another 4 days a year with a razor. So let people think you're now to shave on Chol Hamoed. This way at least they'll go 4 days a year less of shaving with a razor. So it says in Noda, I wasn't mefarsei my heter because I was afraid what people would extrapolate to. I wasn't mefarsei my heter because I don't want people shaving with razors. And then he says one of the most mysterious things you'll ever hear. So I took my tshuva and I put it into my briefcase and I hid it. And I did not publish it. And then years later, when I looked again at the tshuva, I said just the opposite. Since people shave every day with a razor, it's a mitzvah to tell them you're allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed. Why? None of your business. He says, V'hatam komos belibi. Only I know the reason. And I'm not going to tell anybody. Im yavtzer bi lo yoshev. Even if you press me, I'm not going to take it. Now, it happens to human nature. Whenever anybody says, I have a reason, and I'm not telling anyone, and even if you press me, I'm not going to say it, I guarantee you I can get it out of him. Because if he gave you that whole speech, he wants you to get it out of him. But, we're doing it to Noda Yehuda. If he says he's not going to say, he ain't going to say. And then Noda Yehuda was never Megala. The reason why, he was Mefarsen. You hear what happened? At first, Noda Yehuda didn't want to tell people about the Kula. Why not? Because he wanted to prevent people from using a razor on Yom Tif. But then he said, I have a secret reason that because people are using razors, Adarabba, it's a mitzvah to tell people that you're allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed, and therefore I did. And therefore Noda Yehuda was mefarsing the heter that you're allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed.
With a Pailani or by yourself?
To a Pailani. So the question is, Then the next tshuva.
So
Somebody asked the Noda Yehuda.
Rabbi, you get a receipt from Poelani and everybody asks you, say, here's my receipt.
I guess, you need to put in your hair, like a little sign,
Exactly.
Super cut by Pailani, yeah? So, the next tshuva, Noda Yehuda and Simon Kuf, he says like this. We're getting to the end here. He says, look, obviously the questioner started challenging Noda Yehuda. Noda Yehuda said, I already answered all your questions. I can't rehash everything. It says in Noda Yehuda a very important thing. No, you don't agree with me? So don't shave on Chol Hamoed. I'm not saying it's a mitzvah to shave on Chol Hamoed. I'm just telling you the truth. You're allowed to. I do not impose my view on anybody else. I could just tell you the truth. So then the rabbi, somebody asked the Noda Yehuda, wait a second. Imagine if a rabbi would get up in shul and say, it's mutter to do X, Y, and Z. And somebody says, An shuldik rabbi, why is it mutter? I have a secret reason. The guy will be out of there so fast. Nobody will go for that. Secret reason? With this halacha here, what kind of secret reasons are there? So they asked me, what kind of crazy thing is it? That you're being mefarsim this heter and you say you have a secret reason? This is not, this is not some kind of religion from the West Indies. This is Judaism. It has to make sense. What do you mean you have a secret reason? So Noda Yehuda said, no, you misunderstood me. I don't have a secret reason why it's mutter. I told you why it's mutter. Because if you shave there of Yom Tov, then the only reason you're not allowed to is shaloi yikanis l'regel kshuminova. So that you got around. Elamai tzimalacha. So you do it through a pailani. So I have an obvious reason. I didn't want to tell people about it because I didn't want them to use a razor, and I decided to say it anyway for a secret reason. Not that the heter has a secret reason. The heter has an open reason. I personally decided to tell people about it for a personal reason. That's not basing a kula on a personal reason. And by the way, if you want to know what that personal reason is, I'm not going to tell you. And then the Noda Yehuda got another letter from Reb Shol Mei Amsterdam, one of the Gedolei Hadar, who wrote a whole letter and said, Noda Yehuda, you're the Meifes Hadar, you're the Paisek Hadar, you're the greatest in the generation. By the way, Noda Yehuda was the tallest man in the generation. His hands were double the size of anybody else's hand in the Dar. Some Sefer writes. That explains why Noda Yehuda has double the size Shiur. It's the Pesach's coming, Kazayas and Kabeya. Noda Yehuda had a double Shiur. Some Sefer says because he was double the size of anybody else. He was a very tall person. He had huge hands. And therefore, this would explain why he entered all the barbershops in Prague and he said, by the way, do not use a razor. And you see, nowadays, the rabbi says something, well, let's discuss it first. No. You didn't tell it to Noda Yehuda. The guy's like 7.5 feet tall. His hands were very big. The Noda Yehuda went into the... Are you sure? He said, yeah. Make a shvuah right now, take the Sefer Torah, that you will never use a razor. And he went to every barbershop in Prague, and he made them, he writes in Shuvah Kuf Aleph, he made them take an oath that no barbers would use a razor. So Reb Shol May Amsterdam said, look, you're the greatest in the generation, I don't agree with you. And the Chassam Sofer says that the main reason he didn't agree with him was that according to the Heter of the Noda Yehuda, then it should come out that a Kohen in the Beis HaMikdash who shaved Erev his Mishmar should be allowed to shave during his Mishmar. And this idea is not found anywhere. Nobody says that if a Kohen shaved Erev the Mishmar, could shave during the Mishmar. So Reb Shol May Amsterdam says, Noda Yehuda, I don't agree with you, but please be moichel me that I don't agree with you. Noda Yehuda says, I don't have to be moichel you. You don't have to agree with me. I did not write my sefer for any other rabbanim. I do not impose my will on any rabbanim. I wrote my sefer for my talmidim who don't have the koyach to be ma'ayin to my level. So I wrote it for them to accept the opinion of the Rebbe. But no other rabbi has to accept my opinion. And then Reb Shol May Amsterdam said, you know what, Noda Yehuda, it's going to be very difficult for you to be mefarsem your opinion. So Noda Yehuda said, I don't want to be mefarsem my opinion. I don't need anybody to follow it. And you think I'm a gadol hadar? You're misunderstanding. You don't know. You're mistaken in how great I am. And then the Noda Yehuda says like this. Then the Noda Yehuda says something wild. 1 second. The Noda Yehuda says like this. That Reb Shol May Amsterdam said, Noda Yehuda, but don't you know that, who argues on Rabbeinu Tam? The Marame Rotenberg, who's considered the Rebbe of all the Rishonim. He argues on Rabbeinu Tam. Says Noda Yehuda, if the Marami Rotenberg is the Rebbe of all the Rishonim, then Rabbeinu Tam is the Rebbe of the Rebbe of all the Rishonim. Rabbeinu Tam is even greater. But you misunderstood me. I never said I'm passing like Rabbeinu Tam. I'm just saying the Rishonim misunderstood Rabbeinu Tam. And if they would have understood Rabbeinu Tam like I'm saying, they all would have agreed with him. And then the Noda Yehuda says the real clincher, okay? Get a load of this. Says the Noda Yehuda. Says the Noda Yehuda an amazing thing. I didn't want to be mefarsem the heter originally because there's so many people who use a razor, and if they find out you're allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed, they're going to use a razor. However, listen carefully. I already went into Prague's barbershops and I closed down all the barbershops. How? Because I told them they are not allowed to use a razor, and I made them take a shvuah that they will never use a razor. But here is the problem. Says the Noda Yehuda, the problem was that in Prague, all the barbershops were closed on Chol Hamoed. So what happened? If all the barbershops were closed on Chol Hamoed,
Couldn't do anything anyway.
this is what the Noda Yehuda writes in Siman Kuf. Why were the barbershops closed on Chol Hamoed? Because all the Rishonim say you can't use a Pailani on Chol Hamoed. So all the barbershops were closed. So who did the Jews go to? They went to the Goyim. Goyim have no idea how to use the cream. The Goyim all use razors. So that was a big problem for the Jews in Prague. So in order to save the Jews of Prague from having their face shaved by razors of Goyim, I had to be mefarsem the heter. They're allowed to shave through a payal ani. This way the Jews could open up their barbershops and shave people to halacha. He says in Noda Yehuda, but everywhere else in the world where the Jews themselves shave with a razor, this heter is going to cause trouble to people. So really I should hide the heter because of all the other communities besides Prague. Says in Noda Yehuda, I decided to be mefarsim it because people use razors. They need to know you're allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed. Why? None of your business. So Noda Yehuda says, really for Prague, he needed to say it was mutter so that the Jews open up their barber shops, and this way the Jews avoid going to Goyim who are going to razor off their face. But everywhere else in the world where the Jews are using razors anyway, says Noda Yehuda, really it shouldn't be good to tell them about my kula, but bottom line is that I did, and I can't tell you why. So everybody's like itching to know, what is this secret reason of the Noda Yehuda of why Dafka he wanted people to know that you could go to a Payal Ani on Chol Hamoed and get your face shaved. Now this is even outside of Prague where the Payal Ani is going to use a razor. Think about it. The Noda Yehuda is publicizing his heter so that Jews could go to a Payal Ani on Chol Hamoed and have their face shaved with a razor. Comes along the Chassam Sofer and the Chuvah Chassam Sofer. And the Chassam Sofer in our Chaim Siman Kuf Nun Dalet says, Ani hoylech Rachel Megala Soid. I am going to be the Baal Lashon Hara to reveal the secret of the Noda Yehuda. Get ready for this. Says the Chassam Sofer, everybody knows it's an Isser D'Oraisa to use a razor on the face, for a man to use a razor on his face. But the hair has to be a certain length. It's only an Isser D'Oraisa if the hair is long enough that you could take it and bend it back to the root. And therefore, at first, the Noda Yehuda didn't want to tell people you're allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed, because people shave with a razor and they're going to be shaving an extra 4 or 5 days a year with a razor. But then he realized just the opposite. It's better if they shave with the razor every day of Chol Hamoed. Why? Because if you shave every day of Chol Hamoed with the razor, then you just have a little stubble and it's only an Isser D'Rabbanan. And then when Yom Tov is over, you only have 2 days growth and you use a razor, it's weiter only Isser D'Rabbanan because the hair is not long enough yet. So says the Noda Yehuda, if somebody basically shaves every day of the year except for Shabbos or 2 days of Yom Tov, they'll never violate an Isser D'Oraisa of using a razor on the face. So Adarabba, even I'll be mefarsei my heter. People are going to use a razor on Yom Tov, on Chol Hamoed. Great! Because if they use a razor on Chol Hamoed, they'll never violate an Isser D'Oraisa of shaving hair with a razor. So even though I'm being machshel people in Isser D'Rabbanan, it's better this way. It avoids people violating Isser D'Oraisa.
Only with Parlani, so you'd have to find it.
Again, these people, but the Payal Ani was using a razor outside of.
Only these people that need a Parlani or could find a Parlani. If you can't, then you can get a D'Oraisa.
Yeah, but again, back then, the barbers were not. So the Noda says Chassam Sofer, the reason the Noda Yehuda was mefarsim heter is he didn't mind that people use the razor on Chol Hamoed. Why? This way they're never going to be violating the Isser D'Oraisa of shaving with a razor. But says Chassam Sofer, the Noda Yehuda was incorrect. Because we hold that even if the hair is long enough that you could grab it with your fingernails, to use a razor is an Isser D'Oraisa. And therefore, if they're going to do it on Chol Hamoed, they're going to be voiver and Isser D'Oraisa, and therefore he should not have been mefarsim the heter. By the way, once we're on the subject, this is something I wanted to mention for a long time, and hopefully this gets out, not only to the people here, there are many from people who know that you're not allowed to use a razor and they will never use a razor. But I don't know why people don't know that even a scissor, you cannot cut the payas close. What do I mean? It means there are two things. There's the face. The face, a man cannot use a razor on anywhere. Don't say over here, over here, that. We don't know what there are 5 locations on the face you can't use a razor. We don't know exactly where they are, and therefore we do not use a razor on the face anywhere. I don't care what the barber tells you, he knows where it is. Nobody knows the halacha. You're not allowed to use a razor on your face. But there's another halacha, that this area, the minimum from the bone and up, over here, you cannot cut even with the scissors very close to the skin. Some people like to have a nice look to make the sideburns very short. That's a machlokes over here. If it's not long enough that you could grab it, possibly, and pull it back to the root, you can't even cut it with the scissors. I'm not talking about chasidish payas. Even people who don't have payas, right? Regular b'nei yeshiva, b'nei Torah, we don't use a razor anywhere here, but we still keep sideburns, whether it's to the bottom of the ear canal, or a more lenient opinion is till the end of the bone. But above the bone, you cannot have very close sideburns. It has to be a certain length. Whether it's usually we say it's that to be able to bend it back to the root. So you just have to be very careful. Even if people have what's it called? Not the shaver part, but the trimmer, and they want to have nice looking sideburns. People like to make it short. You have to be careful. It has to be. There is a minimum length, and this is a sedaraisa that we're dealing with. So okay, that's something that you should be aware of. Sometimes people like to have a very short haircut. No problem on the top. On the side, it has to be a certain length. Okay, finally, so bottom line is, very nice, the Noda has these three tshuvos, but again, it's only going to become mutter al yidei apoyel ani, which is not really that likely bisman hazeh. Comes Rav Moshe Feinstein, and Rav Moshe Feinstein completely revolutionizes the tshuva, the sugya. Says Rav Moshe, what were the two kashas of Rabbeinu Tam? Listen very carefully, it's very quick, very simple. Says Rav Moshe, the two problems of Rabbeinu Tam is, number one, if Rabbeinu Tam is correct that if you shave on Erev Yom Tif, you're allowed to shave on Yom Tif, you're allowed to shave on Chol Hamoed, then why didn't the Mishnah list it as one of the exceptions? The other question is, Maras Ha'ayin. Says Rav Moshe, the whole sugya was only back in the day, where people, even if they didn't have a beard, shaved once a month, once every 2 weeks, once a week. But in the Heilige country of America, where most people go to work, or many Jews, many Orthodox Jews go to work, they shave every single day. So what are you going to say if they shave on Chol Hamoed? It's Maras Ha'ayin, because people don't know they shaved Erev Yom Tif. The guy shaves every single day of his life. Why wouldn't somebody know he shaved Erev Yom Tif? Everybody knows the guy shaves every single day. So there's no Maras Ha'ayin, says Rav Moshe. But if you only have a little bit, we said it's a malacha. And it's not such a tzorach to shave. Remember the Noda B'Yehuda said that if you shaved Erev Yom Tif to shave on Chol Hamoed, it's a malacha and it's not a tzorach Yom Tif. That's in the times of Noda B'Yehuda, when it wasn't a tzorach Yom Tif to remove stubble. But in the Heilige country of America, there are many people who, even if they have a little bit of stubble, they don't feel they look good. And for them, it is a tzorach Yom Tif to shave on Chol Hamoed. And therefore, says Rav Moshe, Bisman Hazeh, it's mutter Hashem on Chol Hamoed. But, now this is a very important insight. And there are two things. Whenever you have a kula, you have to know two things. Is it a legitimate kula? And do I have a legitimate need? It's not enough that there's a legitimate kula. You have to have a legitimate need as well. You need two things. To be samech on a kula, it has to be real, and it has to be a real need. So says Rav Moshe, I only dispense this kula to someone who needs it very much, or is very distressed. Meaning like this. Let's say a guy says, well, it's mutter, so I'm going to do it. No, Rav Moshe says, I'm not giving you the kula. You have to have tzorach gadol, or you have to be tsar b'yoser. And then Rav Moshe says, you have to be very distressed. Either like this. Either you have to have a very big need, or you have to be very distressed. You're very uncomfortable. But then Rav Moshe says, but let's say a guy just wants to shave because he wants to look nice. Says Rav Moshe, don't be moicha. Don't protest. Don't throw tomatoes at him. Don't think he is a lesser of a Jew. But still, Rav Moshe says, I wouldn't give such an individual a kula. So the bottom line is like this. I would not recommend that anybody shave on Chol Hamoed. Why? Rav Moshe said you could. Yeah, but he says he doesn't dispense this kula only to somebody who really needs so. So, as a matter of practice, the minhag in Klal Yisrael is not to shave on Chol Hamoed. However, if, let's say, you have a very important meeting. Again, what kind of meeting? Business meeting? Why do you have a business meeting on Chol Hamoed? You're going to lose money? So again, if it's you're a Jewish activist and you're meeting with the mayor, you're meeting with the governor, and you feel very uncomfortable, then Ramosha says it's a legitimate cause and it's a legitimate heter. But just for the sake of it, it's better not to have to be samech on it. But if you see someone who does, do not castigate him, do not think lower of him. But in general, the minhag Yisrael is not to shave on Chol Hamoed. But if somebody has a need, it's a good idea to ask a shaila, and now you'll be informed that there is what to rely on. Have a great evening.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.